Honey, are you asleep? Amy whispered something unclear. Please allow me to inquire. You've improved in bed after over 25 years together, why? I observed Amy grumbling. I've always done it for you, hardly awake. She was calm, fetal-like, holding her extra cushion with her back to me. You have, but never enjoy it. Why the rapid change? Amy flipped over, gripping the cushion. With her gorgeous blue eyes, she smiled and stated jokingly, I didn't hear any complaints from you. I smiled at Amy, my best friend and the woman I've admired since our backyard party 20 years ago. Not whining anymore. I'm curious why you let me do it in your mouth twice before we got married, and then never again in a week after 25 years. Chris, Amy was awake and said, What's wrong? Amy, I have a simple question. Over 25 years you've done this without passion. It's always been tedious. Amy sat up in bed as I spoke. Tonight you did something else. Just wondering where this unexpected zeal came from. Amy got out of bed and glared at me with her fists on her hips. Return to the previous way if you like. Amy was angry and seemed to be becoming angrier. No, I love your improved capabilities, I said. To poke fun, I said. You're almost as excellent as some of my old college pals. Annoyed, Amy became red. Before she could react, I said, but you haven't explained why your talents have improved. Have you read, talked to friends, or practiced? You accuse me of what? Amy was mad. I explained calmly that I'm not accusing you. I want clarification. You've hated giving me BJ our whole relationship, but now you enjoy it. I'm curious why Amy grabbed her pillow and left the bedroom, yelling angrily. You don't need to think about it anymore, because I won't do it again, I called out from the bedroom. I guess I'll find out the truth tomorrow. What do you mean by that? She fires back. I said slowly, my almost 6-week-old private investigator reported. Our meeting is in the morning. I think your new talents will be important in the report. Amy's jaw dropped when I bolted the bedroom door. I cried into my pillow in our king-size bed for over an hour as she knocked, cried, and pleaded. Amy and I normally wake up early. My alarm was set for 3 in the morning to avoid talking to her. Within 5 minutes, I changed into workout clothes and exited the house. I was fatigued after my 2-hour morning workout. After showering, I put on clothing from my car the day before. I arrived at my favorite breakfast spot before 6. It was 2 blocks from my office. My adulterous wife hounded me with texts and voicemails after I ordered coffee. Stacy said, see you at 7:30 30 minutes after I ignored them, and texted my boss asking if we could meet at Lucy's. Stacy entered Lucy's, looked around, and sat on the bench across from me when she saw me. She ordered a coffee and bagel to go before looking at me. Stacy said, you look awful, just briefly looking at me. I replied that I feel worse. Anything going on at work? She asked. Stacy relaxed as she concluded her query as I shook my head. It's personal. Amy may cheat on me. She almost admitted it last night. I'm meeting a private investigator this morning to acquire the details. I'll be taking the next couple of days off, but staying in touch with the office. I'll avoid Amy for now. I have a meeting with the private investigator today and a lawyer tomorrow. Stacy sat quietly, gathering her thoughts. Finally, she asked, how can I support you? I shrugged. Aren't you overstepping? You haven't uncovered any proof, unless you're hiding something. I began last night's closeness fight on purpose. Amy immediately raged out of the bedroom. I told her not to answer my inquiries. My private investigator would handle it in the morning. You'd know the report's outcome from Amy's expression. Chris, talk to her. I will. But not now. Where are you staying? Stacy asked. I'll reserve lodging. Stacy went through her big purse and found her keys. This is our cottage key, she handed me. You stayed there before. A 35-minute drive away. Use won't begin until the end of the month. She advised me as she gave me the key. Can I advise you? Of course. Life will get worse before better if things go as planned. The going will be rough. Someday you'll wake up feeling better. Your misery will ensue. Your recuperation will begin then. Sounds like you're experienced. He divorced me 12 years ago. Was hard. Stacy continued as we drank coffee. I avoid discussing it because I'm embarrassed. I ruined my life, my kids, and Tom's. His family dislikes me. My son's pals hit on me since they know everything. I jumped. Stacy, don't tell me everything. I know. I still have more questions than answers concerning my idiotic acts after 2 years of weekly therapy. We laughed regretfully. Mom, Tom discovered my infidelity in the worst possible way. He tested positive for an STD. I was the one who cheated, and everyone knew it. But in a moment of panic, I blamed Tom, accusing him of giving me the disease. Why did I do it? Because I wanted to feel attractive again, to have a secret, to enjoy the thrill of something forbidden. I travel for work, and once or twice a year, I'd meet someone interesting and invite them to my room. It seems so foolish looking back. Stacy sat across from me. her guilt palpable. Have you ever been unfaithful, she asked. No, honestly, I've never felt tempted, I replied. I'm not perfect. I enjoy flirting and knowing that women find me attractive, but I've never thought about betraying Amy. Why do you think that is? Stacy pressed. It's just who I am. Closeness with Amy has been pretty ordinary. She's not into trying new things, but even a regular night with Amy is always better than the wildest one-night stand from college. After months of suspicion and a growing knot in my stomach, I hired a private investigator. Soon, I'd know the truth. But first, I needed to talk to my daughters, Julie and Kate, who were both in their third year at the University of Connecticut. Julie was studying electrical engineering like me, while Kate was majoring in chemistry with plans for a medical career. When we met, they could see something was wrong. Dad, what's going on? Mom's been calling like crazy, Julie said, concern etched on her face. I tried to find the words but couldn't, and tears I'd held back for weeks finally spilled out. They hugged me tightly, trying to comfort me. I'm going to file for divorce from Mom, I told them. She's been having a long-term affair with a coworker. Julie needed to see the proof. I showed them a picture of their mom and Mike Brooks, her coworker, kissing on the front porch of a house their real estate firm was selling. Are you really going to divorce Mom? Kate asked, tears streaming down her face. I don't see any other choice, I admitted. I've given my all to this family, but I can't trust her anymore. And the worst part is, she's lost respect for me. Julie's phone rang. It was Mom. She answered angrily, sorry, Mom, but we're too busy consoling Dad, who's heartbroken. If you need someone to talk to, call your affair partner. I reminded them that despite everything, their mom still loved them, and they needed to find a way to move forward. Later, I visited my parents. They knew something was wrong from Amy's frantic calls. As I explained the situation, my mom, always hopeful, asked if counseling could help. I shook my head. I don't want to see a therapist. I've treated Amy and the girls like royalty. I didn't do anything wrong and don't deserve how Amy's treated me. Do you think counseling could help you deal with this? Mom asked hopefully. I don't think so, I replied with a sigh. Amy wrecked our marriage. This isn't a one-time mistake. It's a full-blown affair. My dad, always practical, supported me but reminded me that they'd like to maintain some relationship with Amy and her family. I understood, but I needed time and space to process everything. The next day, I met with Amy's parents. They were devastated, but I reassured them that I'd be fair in the divorce. They asked if our marriage could be saved, but I told them the truth, there was no going back. Amy made that decision when she chose to cheat. Finally, I confronted Marybeth Johnston, Amy's friend who had encouraged the affair. I warned her that every action has consequences, and I wasn't going to let her off the hook. She threatened to sue if I told anyone about her involvement, but I knew I had to protect my family from people like her. The next steps were going to be difficult, but I was determined to do what was best for myself and my daughters, even if it meant letting go of everything I once thought was unbreakable. The PI reports text communications and my lawyer reviewed the email. He confirmed everything in the email. Sending it to whom? I have emails for all your school district teachers and administrators and 38 Phil's company employees. Over 300 people are there. But the email will likely spread. Members of your country club, church and other groups you and Phil are active in will see it. Marybeth sat dumbfounded. Please show Phil what's going out. I gave her a copy. Enjoy your life. Nasty guy. I learned from the PI investigation that Lucy Brooks, wife to that jerk Michael Brooks, took her kids to Willowbrook Park every Saturday. She and her kids played with other moms and kids in the park. Chris, Lucy greeted me. Haven't seen you since the office holiday party. Why are you here? I wanted to catch up, Lucy. 7 moms watched us. This is no random encounter. Can we talk privately? Lucy happily said, yes, definitely. She soon knew I wasn't happy. Chris is everything, she asked. She stopped speaking as she realized. Lucy blanched. Her friends saw her mood swing and were either worried about Lucy or upset that I had disturbed her. Are you okay? She asked the plump blonde next to her. Lucy just woke up when another mom asked, what's happening? Really, I'm okay. I think we should chat quietly. That's ideal. And gorgeous skinny. Redhead stood up, glaring at Lucy and me. Chris, Aggie, my protective cousin. Aggie, meet Chris Harrington. He's married to a Mike employee. He may wish to talk about women's intuition, as you imagine. What about Lucy and I going to the picnic table under the tree? Aggie. I pointed close. We'll be close but private. Lucy glanced at the ground, silently crying. Aggie ran to her side and hugged her as they cried. As she witnessed my tears, Aggie's fury turned to regret when they parted. I told Aggie I'm involved in your cousin's situation, not just delivering bad news. After a few steps, Lucy stopped and asked Aggs, can you take the kids home? Aggs said, yes, Lucy. Can they remain over the weekend if needed? I asked. How long have you known this at the picnic table across from you? Unfortunately, Lucy groaned. This is familiar territory. We married later than most and started a family. Our second child led to Mike's vasectomy. Within 6 months, he had his first affair. Our second confrontation was a year later. This is strike 3. I suspected something was wrong for a month. I'm wondering if I should divorce Amy. I mistrust myself despite knowing it's inevitable. Why did you stay with Mike after his first 2 affairs? It was largely for youngsters. Totally for them. My parents were divorced, my mother bitter, and I saw my dad once a week. I didn't want that for my kids. It seems we're going that way, but I don't. I'll have lots of help thanks to my strong, neighboring support network. I nodded because I thought Lucy would agree. Why does Mike cheat? I asked. Response: Lucy nodded. It thrills him to corrupt good females. I was naive about intimacy. I loved and learned from Mike. He compensated me for following his guidelines. Only in a loving, devoted marriage do I relish being his wicked partner. Do you have proof? Lucy asks. I replied, giving her a hefty envelope. I recommend giving this to your lawyer and not looking at it. Most of Mike and Amy's conversations hurt. Pain is all there is. You suspected Amy why? Lucy asked. Mike seems to have similar expectations for Amy, I laughed. Like a loyal dog, she taught me the tricks. I'm staying at Aggie's for the weekend while we discuss. I realize it's a big ask, but could you drive me home to pack for a few days? Before I could react, Lucy said Mike would be there. I'm not worried about your bad husband. So glad to take you home, I told her. Lucy returned to me and we went to my car after Aggie resolved everything. Quiet drive to her house. By her street, she told me to halt by an SUV parked on the side. After her instructions, I parked next to the truck and watched Lucy signal the driver. She pointed ahead to the white colonial 5 houses down on the left, where she lived. As I entered the driveway, the SUV followed. Mike was cutting the front grass. Events unfolded swiftly. Mike waved to Lucy exiting my car. Lucy was led to the front door by 2 women who departed the SUV quickly. After they entered, a huge man followed the woman guarding the entrance. As I got out of my car, an older man got out of the SUV. He shook my hand and introduced himself. I watched Mike approach from the front of my car, hands on the hood. Chris Harrington? Why is Lucy with you? Mike appeared scared and pale. I met her at the park this morning. I told her crucial information from my private investigator. Before Mike spoke, Larry did. Mike, you're filth. Your miserable life lost its sole bright spot. All rubbish. Mike shouted, Georgie, stay out of my way, and ran to the front door. I assumed Georgie was the huge man on the steps. Only when Mike tried to pass did he move. He quickly stood up, shoved Mike back, and left him on the ground. Larry looked at me curiously. Mike seems to slip, I said. Mister. Larry nodded. Yes, definitely. Mike tried to stand. He yelled at me. It's your wife's fault. She pursued me. Everyone understands she's public property. Mike, I'll concede. I don't care about Amy's witchcraft anymore. I laughed regretfully to disguise my emotions. Larry then boosted me with his shoulder. You and Mike are a bad match. You know each other's games. How will that go? I have no interest in her, Mike spat. Well, good for her. I said that she has enough issues without you tormenting her. I shook Larry's hand and remarked, he's not worth my time. I leave. Look after Lucy. The gal is wonderful. 2 weeks passed. Amy was served, and her lawyer was talking to mine. Life felt monotonous. Voicemail from my mother-in-law arrived during lunch. Hi Chris, Eileen. Remembering your pledge to talk to Amy, it would be really appreciated if you called her. Thanks. I love you. I grudgingly called home, knowing Amy was at work, grinding my teeth. I left message. Hi Amy, Chris. I'm at Stacy's lake house. Visit for lunch on Saturday if you can. We'll cook sandwiches. We can talk. At noon, meet me at the backyard picnic table. On Saturday. Chris, thanks for visiting. This setup is lovely, I said, taking in the picturesque lake view. Thanks, Amy replied, sitting across from me at the picnic table. Despite everything, Amy still had that certain something, even after all these years. It's nice to see you, Amy. I appreciate you making the drive. She glanced around, taking in the tranquility. It's so peaceful here. Yeah, it is, I agreed. I was considering a downtown condo near the office, but lately I've been thinking about getting a place out here by the lake. My offhand comment hit her harder than I intended. I could see the devastation in her eyes almost immediately. Amy, I started, but she cut me off with a small wave of her hand. No need to apologize, she said, her voice trembling. I'm just being overly sensitive. She looked away, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been scared before many times, actually. Work challenges, raising our wonderful daughters, they've all terrified me. but I always had you by my side. We were a team, and together we could handle anything. We did a good job, didn't we? I smiled softly, trying to lighten the mood. We shared a quiet moment, eating our lunch. I topped off Amy's wine glass and poured myself another beer. I've started seeing a therapist, Amy sighed. Well, shrink isn't fair. Doctor. Poplar has been great, helping me navigate the end of our marriage and figure out how to move forward. I'm glad to hear that, Amy. I hope it helps you find the closure you need, I replied, genuinely wishing her well. I've told myself not to ask you about reconciliation, she began, her voice trembling. Everyone says it's not possible, but I have to ask. Is there any chance you can forgive me, and we can try again? I took a deep breath, downed a swig of beer, and gathered my thoughts. That's two separate questions, Amy, I said, choosing my words carefully. I've been wrestling with the forgiveness part since we agreed to meet today. I've made a commitment to myself to try. After a moment, I continued, it's going to be a process, and I'm not sure if it's achievable, but I'm going to give it a shot. But let me be clear, if I do forgive you, it's not primarily for your sake, but for the girls, our family, and myself. We'll still be in each other's lives enough that I don't want to carry around any bitterness. But Amy, the divorce will proceed, and we won't be getting back together. Amy nodded, tears streaming down her face. Can I reach out if I need support? If I need someone to talk to, she asked, her voice thick with emotion. Though I wanted to shout, I kept calm, grabbed another beer from the cooler, and filled my glass. How about a compromise, I suggested. Until the divorce is final, let's handle things through our lawyers. Afterward, I'll be open to your calls, except for emergencies. 7 months later, our divorce was finalized. It was my first night in my new lakeside home. As I sat on the back deck, contemplating whether to crack open a couple of high-alcohol craft beers or dive straight into the bourbon on the table before me, my phone buzzed. Seeing Amy's name, I answered with a smile. Hey, Amy. I'm really down and could use someone to talk to, she said, sadness evident in her voice. 5 years later, things were looking up. One morning, I noticed the sky seemed bluer, and the birds sounded cheerier. Life was improving. Stacy was proven right. She moved to our company's main office in Dallas, where she's now the executive VP of sales and marketing. Despite staying single, she's seen her kids grow up. After a glass or two of wine, she admits to enjoying the occasional thrill of a one-night stand. Julie graduated college with top honors and now works as an engineer for a defense contractor on the West Coast. She's in a somewhat serious relationship and pursuing her master's degree part-time. Julie maintains a strong bond with both Amy and me, chatting with us weekly. We affectionately call Kate the Mole because of her lack of a social life. After college, she worked for a pharmaceutical company for a couple of years before getting into Johns Hopkins Medical School. Engaged to another med student, they're both devoted to their studies. While I reach out to Kate weekly, she seldom initiates contact, preferring to focus on her studies. My parents are surprisingly healthy for their age. They still reside in Hartford, Connecticut, but escape the harsh winters by spending time in a small condo in Clearwater, Florida. While Mom enjoys monthly lunches with Amy, Dad rarely joins. Frank and Eileen are also doing fine despite minor health concerns. They alternate hosting weekly dinners with my parents, maintaining close ties. Mary Beth and Phil relocated to the Midwest a year after our divorce, with Mike following 6 months later. Good riddance to them all. Lucy and her kids are thriving. Though it took her a while to start dating again, she's been quite popular among eligible suitors. Setting high standards, she eventually found Mr. Right, and they recently celebrated their first anniversary. Judging by their constant smiles, they still feel like newlyweds. Amy appears to be content as well. While her relationship with Kate remains strained, her other connections have healed. She's been seeing a man for 6 months, and the last time we spoke, she mentioned he might be the one. I'm hopeful for her happiness. As for me, things are going smoothly. I stepped into Stacy's role as division president after she moved to Dallas. My responsibilities are manageable and on track. 2 years post-divorce, I bumped into an old acquaintance, Lucy's cousin, Aggie. We met at a mutual friend's daughter's graduation party and chatted a bit. Later, as the older crowd left, Aggie pulled me aside. During lunchtime, like most days, Aggie showed up at my office and locked the door behind her. I quickly wrapped up a call and joined her on the couch. As a man in his early 50s, my prowess isn't what it used to be. While I may have been more energetic in the past, now I can only offer a few drops. Sadly, the days of intense passion are behind me. Fortunately, Aggie doesn't seem to mind,